Will you try filming a video in Scotland in winter when you have a full-time job and a life? New setup. I know other people make one favourite video a month, but I'm not other people. I never have been. I've always been a bit weird. I've always done things differently. So of course I'm going to make two in 1 month to make up for the fact that I didn't make one last month. Well, to be fair, the resolutions video is kind of a favourite. No, it's not. But this is what people seem to do. You know, I sound like a robot in the last few videos because I've been editing them down and taking out any tiny mistakes so that it sounds like a robot. Because that's what happens when you edit out all of your personality. I've been making YouTube videos in some form now for 11 years. You wouldn't think it, would you? Foreshadowing. I'm going to start with a film, because why not? I've not seen that many. I've mostly been doing YouTube stuff and work and being to Tenerife. Link. But I did something at the cinema that I don't normally do. I went back and saw a film that I'd seen before. It's very rare that happens. And it's something that never happens with musicals. Because most of the time I don't willingly watch musicals. But here's the thing. La La Land is a bit more than just a musical. It's fucking brilliant. So why did I like this film so much that I voluntarily chose to watch it at the cinema and spend a ridiculous amount of money, because it is nowadays, let's face it, twice? The main reason, I think, when I really think about it, is Ryan Gosling's character, Seb. I relate to him more than pretty much anyone else I can think of. Let's be honest, he's a bit of a prick, but he's an outsider who cares obsessively about one particular thing and is determined to bring it about no matter what. The film is built around the attempts of him and Mia to achieve their dreams. A lot of YouTubers connected with this film. And no doubt you'll have seen many people talk about it and rave about it and make videos telling you how much they loved it. And that's because for many of us, YouTube is kind of a dream job. It's the kind of thing we want to do for the rest of our lives if we could. I have big plans for the Operatic. It's not just a YouTube channel, there's more to it. And there's going to be, if this thing takes off, a lot more to it. But we're still in the early stages, and this film told me exactly what I needed to hear. That's all. I watch a few shows. I don't tend to watch TV live. I tend to see things in catch-up or just, binge watch box sets or something. As a kid, one of my favourite things that I watched was the Dragon Ball franchise. So Dragon Ball, ZZ, wherever you live, just pick the one that applies to you, and GT. And yeah, I loved them. I really, really liked watching them. Now there's a new, well, not quite new, it started in 2015, and I kind of discovered it last year, and I've been catching up ever since. I'm now in sync with it, so I'm watching it each week as a new episode comes out. Dragon Ball Super. Basically, my childhood has returned. It's every bit as good as the original series. I think definitely better than GT. I also thought the music kind of sounded like, if you remember the band Korn, they were put in a studio and just asked to riff for, I don't know, 4 hours or something, and they kind of spliced up the recorded footage and used that as the soundtrack. But Super is something pretty incredible. I mean, yeah, the music doesn't quite match up to the Bruce Falconer music from Dragon Ball Z, which it was never going to, but it's still pretty epic. There are some really, really nice pieces of music there. The characters exactly as they were before. Every bit is awesome. The new ones as well. You know, Beerus, Whis, and the villains, especially Zamasu. He was amazing. I just, yeah, I just feel like a kid again watching it. It's it's brilliant. Now, one of my resolutions was to read one book every month. That has not happened. When I was on the plane to and from Tenerife, and even a bit when I was there, I was reading this one book that I have on my Kindle called Austerity. It's by Mark Blythe. He's an economist. He predicted Brexit and Trump. He hates austerity, as do most of us, because we're the ones who have to be austere. We're not rich. We don't. It's not like in the US where we can donate to super PACs and choose essentially our politicians. The book talks about basically everything that happened since the financial crisis, the decisions made by governments, and really why they were made. I've not finished the book. I'm still making my way through it, and I may need to really read it a couple of times to really get my head around most of the ideas, because it is quite information dense. Basically, it talks about how the banks essentially blackmailed. Basically, it talks about how the banks used fear to force the Obama administration to give them a bailout. How it is that austerity came about as the policy of choice in Europe. Basically, he argues that that was a logical consequence of the system at the time. But yeah, this is beyond the scope of a fun favourites video, so I'll just stop it there and say, read the book, it's pretty interesting. The song that I'm going to pick wasn't released in January or February. It was released in 1994 by Pink Floyd. I've heard it before, years ago, but it's only in the last couple of months that it's really kind of sunk in. I've really begun to appreciate how good it is, and it's actually probably moved into my top 5 favourite songs ever. It's High Hopes. And yeah, it's not one of the big classics like Another Brick in the Wall, Money, Shine On You Crazy Diamond. And in fact, Roger Waters, from what I read, really hated that album. But I heard it once, and I think I did find it quite depressing, especially as it started, but High Hopes is an incredibly brilliant song. I tend to like epic sounding, powerful songs. You expect a song to go a certain way, especially if it has a kind of verse-chorus structure. And this song does, but it interrupts the flow of the song at one point to shoehorn in this incredibly epic, almost orchestral sounding piece of music. It's amazing. And maybe other people see that as a flaw, but I just love that kind of stuff. Like I said, it's a rule that's been broken, and I think it works there, definitely. Now, my favourite experience of the last 2 months has definitely been going back to Tenerife. I'm going to link another video. This is the video I filmed when I was there. But yeah, one of my resolutions was experience warm weather in winter. I can now tick that because I was there. Kind of low to mid-20s every day. There's a tiny bit of rain here and there, but it kind of reminded me of Edinburgh in summer. But yeah, exactly the kind of morale boost you need at this time of year. And of course, I went there because it's relatively cheap as well. Don't want to waste too much money, YouTubers now. I'm subscribed to quite a few people. Quite a huge range of people as well. One that I've subscribed to quite recently, and I think in the last 2 months, is Wendover Productions. He makes videos about... it's quite difficult to explain. He talks about, like, for example, if you buy a plane ticket, where the money goes. And on top of that, he made a video about how budget airlines work, civil engineering, economics, civil engineering, a bit of geography. I think it's really quite a useful channel in terms of, if you've ever been curious as to why things are the way they are, how the world works in certain ways, especially when it comes to transport, things like planes and boats and trains. It's a very educational channel. I've even put it in my education playlist that I mentioned in the last video, so I definitely recommend checking him out. As to my favourite video, it's not by Wendover Productions, it's someone else. It's a travel vlogger called Psycho Traveller, better known as Ali. She's been making travel videos for a while. Recently hit 100,000 subscribers. Well done, Ali. Love your channel. She made a video about being responsible as a traveller. What I mean by that, well, one thing that was mentioned specifically was animals, how they're treated abroad. But it also touches on things like carbon emissions. So obviously, if you're traveling around the world a lot, you're using flights. Horrible for the climate. I brought this up in my Tenerife video as well because I really like traveling. At the same time, I love things like clean tech, and I'm very well aware of the issue of climate change. I'm definitely not a denier or anything like that. Yeah, there's a disconnect there. I've not really been sure how to address it going forward because I would still like to do both. The reason I liked it so much, the reason I favorited it, was because of one specific thing she said, that what I would say is the main message, and that's, in her words, you vote with your dollar. I think this is such an underappreciated piece of knowledge, piece of understanding about the world, and it extends beyond travelers. I mean, here on YouTube, people, part of how many YouTubers make a living is they do sponsored videos. They get brands to pay them a certain amount of money for displaying their product in some way or talking about their product in a video. But one very simple way that YouTubers could be more responsible is to investigate these brands, look into their business practices, how they treat their workers, what percentage of their energy is free of fossil fuels, is renewable. I was in fact going to make something like this a cornerstone of my channel going forward, but I think this is as good a time to start as any, so vote with your dollar. Where it doesn't take up a massive amount of your time, look into certain companies that you maybe buy from regularly. Are they, moral companies? Especially when it comes to channels that are based around things like fashion and beauty. There's so much potential there for companies to be exploitative. You hear all the time about ones that use sweatshops in Bangladesh and places like that. This is one very simple way that we can just make the world a better place, so why not start? Now, we're all about self-empowerment on this channel. I want you to become your ideal self, and I want me to become my ideal self. So, what skill did I learn, did I develop in the last 2 months that I really appreciated? How about CGI fire? Yeah, it's not that useful. I can use it in YouTube videos. If I ever decide to become a professional filmmaker, which I seriously doubt, if I ever just gave up on this and did animation professionally, that's pretty much it, isn't it? But it's part of something bigger. Editing in general, making videos, doing interesting stuff on a YouTube channel. I just like playing about with what I've got, and my software allows me to do 3D modeling and things like that, so I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep making these videos flashier. I'm going to keep experimenting, see how it goes, and eventually they might even one day be good. Piece of knowledge. Now, in retrospect, Ali's was pretty good. But there's another thing I want to talk about. I've known this for some time, but it's more poignant now than ever been than it's ever been before, simply because of Trump. If you get a group of people together, centered around one idea, in this case Trump himself, the echo chamber develops, they feed off of each other's opinions, they start going along with ever crazier stuff. Once you get a group of people together, get them talking in amongst themselves, it can be done in person, it can also be done on social media. Certain ideas are expressed. They might under normal circumstances be considered quite heinous. But as this echo chamber develops and people encourage each other's increasingly more problematic behaviour until it can be taken to quite absurd extremes. Now, I remember there was a Derren Brown show that detailed this. Basically, they got a studio audience together and they put this guy through just this series of horrific events. The audience was just rooting for him to do ever crazier, more cruel stuff to this guy. And they kept cheering Derren on. And it wasn't until this guy that they were torturing, I guess you could say, got hit by a car that everyone just snapped out of it. And they thought, well, we've really crossed a line now. It's kind of like a bubble blowing up and then all of a sudden it just bursts. I think a lot of Trump supporters are still in this bubble. They're excusing his behaviour. He's already enacted a Muslim ban. Oh wait, we can't call it that. A ban of 7 majority Muslim countries that's suspiciously indifferent to Christians. He's approved DAPL and Keystone. Everyone on his cabinet wants to dismantle the Department of Government they're running. His press secretary openly and shamelessly lies to the media and recently banned several outlets from even entering the press room. And it's only been a month. We have 4 more years of this. Potentially 8. Unless he's impeached, which a lot of people want. I have to wonder whether it's wishful thinking. He seems to get away with anything. Now it's time for my piece of wisdom. You can probably tell I'm quite tired at the moment. You know, I tend to need 8, maybe 9 hours sleep a day. And during the week, especially, I tend to get maybe 5 or 6. And I find that I'm not very productive, especially during the later parts of the week, and can in fact get quite down, quite depressed. I always tend to think there's a reason for it, but one thing that keeps coming up is that I don't feel like that when I've actually had enough sleep. And it's something that really sounds obvious. I mean, sleep's something you need, but you don't always tend to appreciate things like that and actually how important they are for your mental health, I guess. So as the final favourite of the video, the piece of wisdom that I want to deliver to you today is, please get enough sleep. So to build on the self-empowerment theme of my channel, I'm going to do a challenge every month. For this month, I'm going to record a 2-minute video. It has to be as technically brilliant as possible, and I have to be as open and as personal and I guess vulnerable as possible. The point of this exercise is to upskill myself in the art of YouTube as quickly as possible. This is in relation to both the technical side and the content side. Both aspects have to be as developed as possible by the end of the month. The 2-minute format allows me to experiment as much as possible without having to commit to that many final ideas, so that I only choose the best ones and produce the best product I possibly can. Kind of sound like Walter White, but wish me luck. If you like this video, good, I'm finally getting somewhere. Please like it, thumbs up. Please at least consider subscribing, and I will see you next time. 189,819 letters is the chemical name for titin, a muscle. So this video is going to be in 2 parts. First, I'm going to talk about what you can do to combat DeVos and her cronies, and the